Good morning, everyone. And welcome to everybody, and thank you all for coming out to this meeting. It is truly heartwarming to see so many people attend an early morning meeting so that we can talk, Belknap EDC can talk about what's happening in Laconia. I'm Gracie Silly. I'm the current chair of the board of Belknap EDC, and this has been a really interesting year with a lot of different work that has gone into what is becoming our major project, as well as a major project for the city of Laconia and the entire Lakes region. So we're really excited about the Colonial, but we also want to tell you about the other things that Belknap EDC has been doing in the past year, because we've been doing a lot more than just the Colonial. So it's been a great year. Justin gave me notes, so I have to look at my notes every now and then. I've thanked you all. I thank all of you who have contributed time, money, effort, promotional help, everything that Belknap EDC needs and has used with the utmost care. So in this past year, we've had more than 375 people that have personally invested money and time into the support for the Colonial Theater. And I think that that is amazing, and you all deserve to congratulate yourself, because I know many of you are here in this room. So please give yourself some appreciation. So I think that's all I'm scheduled to say, and now it's my turn to hand the mic over to Justin Slattery, the Executive Director of Belknap EDC, who will take us through the rest of the program and bring you up to date on what we've been doing in the past year. So thank you.
Thank you, Gracie. I should mention, I see a few people that are standing in the back. We do have seats up here. Gail, if you'd like a seat, please come up. As Gracie said, we're so thankful to all of you in this time of Thanksgiving and holiday season. I look out at the room and I see so many people that have given so much of their time to work to improve their community, to work on projects that help build economic development here in Laconia and throughout the region, really. And so, it's a very awe-inspiring to see you all here this morning, I would say, and have such a large turnout. So as Gracie said, obviously we've been working a lot on the Colonial Theater project, as you all know, for the last couple of years, really. But Belknap EDC does a lot of work on different economic development initiatives to move our economy forward, to move our region forward. So I wanted to briefly update you on that, and looking out at the room here, some people, I think this is probably their first event they've ever attended for Belknap EDC. There's others that are board members or been significantly involved in the organization, and others that I think were here when the doors opened 25 years ago. So I know that's important to sort of walk through where we are across everything. But obviously our mission is to build economic development here in Belknap County and throughout the region, to work with our communities, to work with our businesses, to help them grow and succeed and access the different resources that they need to move forward. And that's what we do day in and day out. We also specifically in recent years have worked on specific goals to help build on that mission. And the first being working very closely with our small business community, working very closely with our partners, whether it's a Small Business Development Center and Sally Holder, who's been locally in our office for the last few years offering that one-on-one assistance to small businesses, or whether that's Ken Wilson managing our revolving loan fund, working closely with our business community, helping businesses access financing and funding and different sources of capital they need to be able to create jobs and expand their business. So I was looking at our statistics just in that department, if you will, and we've worked one-on-one in the last 11 months with over 150 individual businesses one-on-one in the office. So I want to give a hand to Ken and Sally for their work there. very important work and very important to our local economy here. Next, we have focused on, I think we've all heard this at this point, as New Hampshire continues to age, as the Lakes region continues to age, and we see our businesses needing to attract a new generation of talent, people with the right skills to be able to move their business forward. We have focused significantly our resources on working closely to attract millennials and attract a new generation of workers that can help our businesses grow. To be blunt, it's basically a crisis here in New Hampshire that we need to be developing that pipeline of talent, or we will see our economy stagnate in the coming years. And I think I see people nodding in the room. I won't belabor that too much today, but it is so important to work closely with organizations like Fusion, to work closely to market the region, which is we've done through some of our young talent marketing and our profiles that we have displayed throughout the last couple years, and a couple pictures of some of the different marketing we have done. We will continue to do that as we move into 2018, and we also will be unveiling a new website as well in early 2018 that will be geared towards not only young talent and working on marketing of the region, but also will be geared towards explaining our resources, marketing our different resources, whether it's our small business development services, our financing, or our workforce development, which I'm going to talk to in a minute. So that's another highlight as well that we wanted to briefly mention. Next, workforce development really dovetails into what I just said. Working closely with our schools, working closely with our local businesses. We continue to create opportunities for our local students and our community college and others to be able to have programming that allows students to get on site at different businesses, allows students to understand the different opportunities and career opportunities that are here in the region. It's awe-inspiring to see those connections made between our local businesses and our local students. All 14 high schools in October, this past October, participated in Manufacturing Week, which had its roots about 5 years ago here in the region. It's gone statewide and now it's turned into Manufacturing Month. And we had over 600 students participate in Manufacturing Month with our local businesses. That speaks to our businesses stepping up to the plate. That speaks to our schools being creative, flexible, working to get their students opportunities to get outside the classroom and have that hands-on experience. And it's something we should really be proud of, and we will continue in the coming year. We are building on some of the momentum that we've seen there. Specific to manufacturing, we'll be working on a healthcare week in 2018 to connect our students with some of the healthcare careers, other job expos and job fairs to help students understand the different careers that are available here, and possibly something around hospitality as well. So we're looking forward to that progress. We also continue to have our internship database, which now has become such an important tool to our local schools that I know whole schools are now using it. In some of our local high schools, it's an important tool to connect connect business with the students and provide those internships and job careers. It's so important. So with that said, that just gave a brief update. And I have to tell you, I found out yesterday I need a root canal, so I'm a little bit I'm on this side. So I sound a little funny, like I'm leaning one way. I feel it a little bit this morning, so go figure. That was last night. So anyway, let me keep moving through and we'll move towards the Colonial. So the amazing project, which is the Colonial project, which has been just unbelievable, the support we have had. You can see it in the room today. We wanted to update you, walk through where the project is, walk through the design. But first, I was going to give a little bit of update, and then also have Sonia and her team from Massagic and Turban talk through the design, and we'll leave time for questions as well at the end of the presentation. So first, I wanted to thank a lot of people. One would be our key partner, which is the City of Laconia, Mayor Engler, Scott Myers. I know Councilor-elect Haynes is here, Councilor-elect Cheney, Councilor Bounds is right over there, for all their leadership on this project. That has been so important. to work with us and work with Belknap EDC. There are over 12 funding partners for this project. $17 million project. We're leveraging a lot of resources, and that starts with the city. That starts with some federal incentive programs, state grant programs, the capital campaign that many of you have been so generously supportive of. Over 350 people that have, individuals and businesses have supported that campaign, state tax credits, and many other programs to get us to this point. It's very, very exciting. We've also had multiple committees volunteer hundreds of hours, if not thousands of hours at this point, on fundraising, on planning. The Cultural Arts Center of the Lakes Region Committee, I know many of you are here as well, has been a great partner as well, specifically to the capital campaign and helping us raise funds locally and being such a great supporter of the project. Also many partners, whether potential users of the Colonial down the road, whether that's Streetcar or the Putnam Fund, which I know has a great concert tonight with John McDermott at the Sacred Heart Church. Those kind of events is what the Colonial eventually will be a great venue for as we move towards getting the project completed. So there's a lot to be thankful for. There's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of progress that has been made in the past year, and it's just quite the project. And so we're very excited to update you. I should mention a couple things before I hand it off to Sonia and Jared. We are working on probably any day now. I'm looking for Jody here, but working on some storefront holiday decorations for the theater to get that spruced up a little bit. If you've been down there in recent months, we had a lot of photos of the project, but we want to spruce up a little bit for the holidays. I've been working closely with the downtown folks as well, which I know many of them are here as well. And I should tell you, I think the question people want to know is we think we're going to be starting construction this winter. So we're looking forward to moving towards that. We're basically finalizing what's needed to move towards closing, and we believe we will be starting construction early 18 or winter if you have you. So we're very excited to move in that direction. And lastly, I should mention Councillor Kenny and I know Representative Hewitt are both here. We really appreciate their support. I know Councillor Kenny, you've been a strong supporter of the Lakes region and of our work here at Belknap EDC. So I appreciate you taking the time to hear our updates, and I once again appreciate all of you being here today. Appreciate all of you taking the time to be here, and we really have made so much progress because we're all on the same team. We're all moving forward, and it's because of you that we can move forward on projects like the Colonial. We can keep them moving towards fruition, if you will, and getting them completed. And we're really excited for the potential of a finished Colonial, what that will do economically speaking, what that will do for cultural arts, what that will do for job creation, and just really to the neighborhood in downtown Laconia, but throughout the region as well and throughout the city. So with that said, I thank you all, and I'd like to ask Sonia and Rob to continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sonia Mashashik from Mashashik Turpin, and this is Jared Gilmet from our office. We want to thank you all for your patience. We're a small firm, so it takes us a little bit of time to generate drawings and develop ideas and concepts. But we have, right from the get-go, started with a local team to help you bring this project to the final build of it. So on our team, we have Riss Frost Shumway, local engineers over in around the Oval across from our office, and we have Bonnet Page and Stone here today, and they are also in Laconia. So it's really about that economic growth and development that Justin was talking about that is moving this project forward, also through the use of local people, which is fantastic. So we've done a lot of work. I'm gonna just kind of highlight a few things, and then I'll turn it over to Jared, who'll talk a little bit about the history of the building. But some of you are very informed on the project. Some of you may be new to it. So I'm just gonna kind of run through the work that's been done. So teams were established. We did phase one sort of demolition and cleanup of the building. We also have done extensive environmental and hazardous material research on the building. We have then also developed agendas of different tasks that needed to be done. So the cleanup will happen when the construction happens. We had kind of an early cleanup, but we know exactly what needs to be done in that area. We also went through a very extensive historic analysis of the building, and that allowed us to submit to the National Park Service so that we were able to this building will be on the National Register. And that was a lengthy process, developing what in the building was historic, how would it be improved upon and repaired. And then there's actually a final phase where we actually document to the Park Service the work that has been done. It is through that process that we are getting historic tax credits for the project. So that's very much a critical part. So to talk about the history, Jared will kind of walk you through a few things.
Hi. So in the early 1900s, Benjamin Piscopo, an Italian immigrant, came from the Naples area of Italy, and he came first to the Boston area where he really established his name as a hotel owner. And he came up here to the Lakes region during the summers and just really fell in love with the place. So in 1913, he commissioned the Colonial Theater to be built in downtown Laconia. It was to be a 1,400-seat auditorium for vaudeville-style performances. So he successfully achieved that. There were 1,400, which is kind of incredible. When it's completed, we'll be able to get 750 seats in it. So kind of shows you how seat designs have changed a little bit. So in the design of the theater was always intended to have a big retail element and commercial element to it. So the upper floors of the building, and this is a postcard from 1914 showing the original layout. So the upper two floors were always intended as two-room offices. And those kind of stayed that way until the late 1920s, when the back half of them started to shift to apartments. By 1960, 1950, we saw that all of the offices were no longer there and were fully apartments. But the retail on both sides of the entrance were always stayed there. And we saw that up through today. So in the 1980s, as many of you maybe experienced, the theater was subdivided into 5 cinemas. And that was, had a lot of community gripe about it, but economically for the owners, that was the proper thing to do. And it functioned that way until 2000, when it permanently closed its doors. And then BEDC has come in, and we're now getting this beautiful building back up and running.
The really interesting part when it was divided up is that it was divided in a way that the historic fabric of the building was not necessarily pulled out. They took partitions up to plaster. They left the paintings in there. It was really a tribute to the folks that renovated that and used it as the individual theaters to think, wow, maybe at one point somebody's going to want to take this back to one sort of venue.
So as we get further into this, kind of want to just break the building apart for you guys. So it's really into 4 zones. We have the Main Street block, which fronts Main Street and is at the corner of Canal as well. And that has the entry to the theater, as well as the 4 retail units and the 18 original upper apartments. Behind that, we then have, we're calling it the connector infill, because that's really the only property that we can build on in the renovations. But right now it has the single-story foyer and the control room. Behind that, we have the main theater house, so that has the seating, the stage house, and the balcony space. And then off on Canal Street, we have what we've been calling the Canal Triangle. Originally was retail, except for where the Freight's Dance Studio was, which had originally been back of house space. So that's where they built their sets. That's where sets came in, casts kind of did all their changing and rehearsal. So So the canal triangle is going to be completely brought back to back of house to meet standards for production performances and multifunction spaces. As a big part of this, we really wanted to, as Sonia had mentioned, we've been going to try and get this building listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So in order to do that, we have to approach this design with a very sensitive eye to the design and making sure that we properly restore it as well as bring it to the standards that we all hold today as necessary. So we went through extensive research and development and were able to find original blueprint, floor plans of the building, which had sections, elevations, all that. And even though they're pretty grainy, we've been able to decipher a lot of information from material selection to riser and tier locations. So this has been like an extremely beneficial part for us. That really showcased the extreme detail that was taken in the project, both in the original design as well as when the builders were actually on site. So some of the stuff that we saw was never actually drawn out or documented, and they changed it in field. So that kind of made for a little bit of a difficult understanding of the whole timeline of the development of the building. But it was in 1914 fully vaudeville performances, and then by 1920 they had a single screen and they were showing movies that early on. So movies have pretty much been a part of the building for an extremely long time, and that kind of speaks to the great marquee and blade that we see hanging out over Main Street today. So those elements will be fully restored to really bring the vibrancy back to the building. Here's an early shot of the marquee and blade too, with the retail on both sides and up above. So now we'll walk through the space a little bit more for you guys. Like we've been saying, Main Street's here, Canal's here, and I apologize if this is a little hard to see. We do have printouts on the back, but we have our main entrance vestibule here. That's where we'll have ticket booth brought back, and then the 4 retail units on the main street. That will then enter you into the foyer where the concession stand will be, and then stairs lead you up to the balcony, which have always been there. So that's kind of the existing fabric. And what we're doing is on the canal side, we're building an addition that will house elevators. One elevator will access the theater to provide full accessibility to all levels of it, including the control room. And then the other elevator will give full access to the apartment levels. And then in the back here, in this enclosed courtyard, we'll be building a 2-story restroom volume. So that way, I mean, today there's like a total of 6 toilets in the whole building, so we want to make that work a little better. And then we enter into the theater where we will be rebuilding some tiers that meet the new requirements, as well as introducing a central access way. Historically, it just kind of brought you straight down and there was no way to cut across. So trying to get a little bit more accessibility into the space. And then, as I mentioned, all in the canal triangle will be brought into dressing room space, flexible meeting space, changing rooms, storage, light amp rooms, and all that kind of stuff. Upstairs, so as I mentioned, there were originally 18 offices. Those will be changed to be 14 apartments. And we did that because these originally back here, there were 4 on each level. And what we've done is we've merged those so that there's 2 larger units per floor. And this allows there to be in-room laundry, office space, bedroom and a half in a couple of them. And then we have single-bedroom apartments on the whole Main Street face. There's a historic connecting stair that will remain, and we have storage space that we're bringing into the apartments, as well as shared laundry for those that don't have laundry. So in part of the historic application that we've been putting together, which all of this documentation had to be included, we've been developing 3-dimensional modeling so that we can see and compare colors. We can check out modern HVAC equipment that we have to locate on the roof it's important visually how that reads. So really getting an understanding for what the design is going to look like. Oops. Yep.
There's also a skylight above that historic stair, and that was historic in its nature. We'll put a new one in, but it's about bringing light down into the stairwell there so that the people that are in the apartments have a connection with the exterior.
So just jumping ahead real quick, here's that stair in the apartments. It's pretty dark today because there was a lot of subdivision, so that'll be opened back up. And we recently uncovered the original decorative glass that was above the stairs. So this is not the skylight itself. There's about a 4-foot ceiling kind of attic space, and then we hit the roof. And on top of the roof was the skylight, which was closed over in the early 90s, we believe. But this glass was left intact, and it's in pretty decent condition. You know, there'll have to be some restoration to it, but that'll be a really awesome element in the apartments. And this was just kind of the other view, you know, showing how we'll still have street frontage for retail. We'll open up the windows again here on Canal Street, so be a lot of cool things going on. Here's a shot today going up through the entrance vestibule for those that haven't seen it. The 1980s wallpaper will finally be removed, and we'll get the new paintings back up there. So we've been working with New Hampshire conservators and preservation offices in the state to really break apart the entire building and figure out what the historic fabric was, from painting schemes to floor material to door finishes and hardware. So we'll be able to bring all of that back to its original kind of beauty. So the proscenium arch will be fully regilded. You know, all of the ornate decoration that was in the theater that was either removed in the 80s or is still there and just water damaged, we'll be able to recast and make them brand new again. Shots from inside the apartment. So, you know, really great light in a lot of these spaces with the original windows. The decorative, they each had decorative glazing in between the two spaces to pull light through. And we actually have, they're not all in all of the units right now. A lot were taken out and put in the basement. So we'll be able to restore those and put them back into the spaces so that it'll be a really unique and character space. So that kind of wraps up our end. Want to turn it over to questions, I guess?
I'd just like to take a quick minute before we turn it over to the questions and highlight Jared, who went to Laconia High School. He came to our office through the 200 by 2020 program when he was still in high school, and he was an intern with us throughout his years at Wentworth. So now he's actually back with us working full-time in our firm, and I honestly can't think of someone who gives more to the community than Jared. We are very fortunate to have him both in our office, and I think we're very fortunate to have him in our community. But he is a living example of what the Economic Development Council is putting forward. So now we'll turn it over to questions.
Thank you both. I should mention two things as well. One is, as we talk through a major construction project in downtown Laconia, we look forward to working closely, and BPS as well, our construction manager, working closely with our downtown merchants and our downtown businesses and the city, to be communicating as we work through construction. We want to make sure we can make things as smooth as possible. So we look forward to working with you on that. Then I also should mention as well, speaking of Jared and the work, I know I've been working with Jared and some of the other folks that celebrate Laconia. We know 2018 is a big year for the city of Laconia and its anniversary. And the theater and Belknap EDC and the work we're doing, we look forward to partnering with Celebrate Laconia in the coming year and collaborating, really, which is something that really Belknap EDC is founded on, is finding partnership and ways to move forward. And so we look forward to working with the team at Celebrate Laconia and helping to celebrate Laconia as we move forward. And we know the Colonial can play a part in that as well. So thank you all very much. And I think on behalf of our directors and Gracie, once again, we really appreciate your support. And we're here to answer any questions now and will be here after the meeting as well. Yes, sir. It's an advantage because 20% of the project will be receiving, 20% of the whole project is what we're receiving historic tax credits. So there's a couple things. One, it has to be on the historical register for us to be able to receive that capital for the project. Two, it's a marketing and economic development opportunity to have the theater registered on National Register. And three, it's a historic property, and we want to be proud. We want to make sure we want to recognize it as such. And so that was very important to Belknap EDC. It's a great question, and I'll answer a little bit, and then I'll have maybe Jared can fill in with Sonia. But Peter Huddleston was the artist who did the work here in the 1910s for the Colonial Theater. I know research has turned up that he did a lot of great work throughout New England. I know the Saco Town Hall in Maine has some features like this. I'm not an art major by any means, so I mean I'm talking a little bit probably gibberish compared to people that know what they're talking about, which I think there are many in this room that do know more than me. But he was very well known as an artist in New England. He was commissioned to do work. He did work here in the Colonial Project, very exquisite work. And I know the Arts Council and some of the other groups have, the historic groups that have come to see the property have spoken of how it's in such great detail over 100 years later, and how amazing opportunity that is to be able to restore it. He was he was a friend of the King of Denmark, I believe, and yeah, he was a good friend of the King of Denmark, and he. When he passed away in the 1920s, it was actually in the New York Times. He was that well known as an artist that he was recognized nationally when he passed away. And so we reached out to the ambassador's office early on in the project, and we haven't had too much connection made. But we're always open to ideas with that. But we have thought of that angle, if you will, but there hasn't been too much progress. Well, the city will be the operator of the theater, and eventually the theater would be condoed off from the retail and residential parts of the building. It's actually 3 buildings. So at the end of 7 years, when the tax credits unwind, the city will own the theater. So I know the city manager is here, Scott Myers. I know the city is working hard on their plan, and I think they'll continue to keep us updated as we move into construction. But I don't know if... Not to put Scott on the spot, if you have anything to add, or I know it's a work in progress, but ultimately, we all want the theater to be busy, the theater to be an economic driver, to be a cultural arts driver for the city, for all. So, and I think there's more to come there.
Nice. Good morning.
Keith's with Bonnet Page and Stone.
As Jared pointed out, that the building is broken up into sections with the retail entry and apartment block, and then the apartment area, and then canal. So we can start a lot of that work simultaneously, almost as 3 separate projects. So demolition would be key. A lot of materials being stripped out of all areas of the building, and then getting the restoration people in as quick as possible to start on their part. They're talking about 6 to 8 months probably in restoration work. So the idea will be to get them in quickly and work with Daniels Electric and folks like that to combine those teams to about a 12-month schedule. So we're looking at a start of this winter, and we'll be finishing up next year. As well. Yes, when the weather clears up, we of course can start with our demolition efforts and our rough ends. As soon as weather turns and we can paint and get it cleaned up on the exterior, we can remove the blade and the marquee. We can replace windows. All of that will happen pretty quickly through spring and summer of next year, so that the building will begin to get that new appearance again.
There is. We've worked closely with the design team, with the project team, with the city, with some of the nonprofits here that would use the building to make sure there is the technical. We don't want to build a theater that's like a museum. You know, this has to have the ability to put on shows, to put on various different kinds of shows, live performance, have the technology to put on audio, visual, and so forth. And yes, it has almost $1 million in equipment alone that's for audio and visual and such like that. So that was very important to all of us to make sure we're building it. To have that capacity, if you will, to meet the needs of our local organizations, but also be able to bring, add acts and professional performances here as well. It'll be on par with any theater in New Hampshire. As I said earlier, the city is working on their operational plan right now, and they'll continue to keep us updated, and I think keep the community updated as we move into construction. Yeah, sure. Well, I can tell you, as we talked about last week, the Economic Development Council is nothing more important to us than making sure our businesses are not getting impeded by anything we do. So that is very important and a priority of us, and will continue to be. Keith, can you speak a little bit to the staging? I know we've spoken. And it's great with BPS being right here in Laconia. I know that gives them some flexibility when it comes to how they're prepping. But.
It's, of course, a very urban project here, so we'll be staging that to get out of the way, and very much like you'd see in Boston, where you're coming under staging areas, protected from the work above. If we do have to close down areas at a time, it'll be for short periods. We'll be coordinating deliveries, so there won't be a lot of materials being able to be stored on site. We'll have to coordinate quickly, and we'll be adjusting those hours to work around merchants downtown. So probably we'll be needing to meet with you guys and talk through some of those efforts. We'll develop a logistics plan to deal with safety and deliveries, and we can present to all of the downtown merchants at that time.
And I should mention as well, and been working with Keith and Barry specifically on this as well, is we want to have one of those storefronts be almost like the office for the project or the welcome center for the project. So we'll have one of the storefronts be a place where you can go to get information, and then we also want to have we want to present to the city and the neighborhood, maybe a weekly meeting, some type of scheduled meeting where we're communicating out what we see, what we anticipate, and how we can work with you all to minimize any disruptions. I think my answer to that would be, continuing to work with you. I know we've regularly met and walked through any issues we see coming up. I think we'll continue to do that. Belknap EDC, as I talked about earlier, we're charged with building economic development here in the region. So we'll continue to market the region and obviously specifically the downtown as well, that open for business, if you will, and working closely with our different partners as well to do the best we can to work with our downtown businesses. And I think we'll just continue that open communication, working with you and working with our project team. Yes. That's a great idea. That is something we have looked at as a possibility. Arts can really drive economic development, and we think we have a great opportunity here with a project that can drive those kind of cultural arts and can create a creative economy, basically. So it's a great point. Thank you. I feel the construction it's quite the undertaking when you think of the different financing that we're leveraging to get the project there. We're ready to go. Our financing for construction is ready to go. I think whether as the city works through how it's going to operate, whether it's a nonprofit entity ends up managing the theater like is done in other communities or a third party, I think there'll be fundraising type of opportunities there down the road, but the project is funded to get it constructed. I'll have Sonia.
Thank you, Randy. So when we first started out looking at the project and trying to determine number of seats, we wound up creating a radius around the theater of, I think, a football field's length. So 2 football fields in terms of its diameter. And the great thing about the theater is a lot of the use will be at times in the evenings. So we have some offset that will happen. There may be times when the theater is used during the daytime, and that's when our parking loads would be the highest. So there'll have to be some communication with the city, the local businesses, just like we were talking about during construction. But there is really sufficient parking if we entertain the city lot next to my office, if we entertain the little infill lot on Main Street. There's on-street parking. Then we also have the parking garage. I understand we've got some issues in terms of accessing the top floor, But really, there's a lot of parking in the city. People will disagree with me because we as Americans think that we want to park right in front of the door and walk 2 feet to get into the building. But if you think that's not going to provide economic vibrancy, economic vibrancy is going to come about when you park a little bit away and you walk past a shop or you walk past a restaurant or a bar and you look in there. Wow, you might actually stop and have a drink before you go into the theater, or you might stop and have a meal over at the local or Burrito Me, or, you know, we've got a lot of growth that's happening. So if you want to park right in front of the building and walk in there, we're going to have an accessible entrance. So someone that needs an accessible means to get into the building, that will be there and able to happen. But we're hoping that we can kind of see this as an economic driver for our community and expose the whole area of downtown to people walking. So there is parking. It's going to take a little bit of mindset change possibly on some people's parts, and there'll be a little bit of growing pains, to be honest, but we'll work through it as a community, I believe.
So I think we're going to call it a day. I know there's a lot of people busy today, and I know the children's auction's next week, and I know the Putnam Fund has a show tonight and other events going on, and also you all have day jobs as well, so everyone's probably pretty busy, but we're around to answer any questions afterwards. We'll continue to keep you updated. I think on behalf of Belknap EDC and our board of directors, incorporators, investors, and everyone else who supports us, we greatly thank you for your support. And we look forward to continuing to work with you in the future. So thank you very much. How'd that go? Good.